able to hear me already. I'm trying to get YouTube going now. Start streaming. Okay. Okay, so we should be live on both YouTube at the moment and on Facebook, I hope. I hope. I'm going to wait just a second to be sure that you all hear me, and then I will jump in. It's a bit difficult. I'm in Brazil, by the way, at the moment, so Merry Christmas to all of you, and wonderful to have you all here. This is a rather unusual session that we're going to have today, and I'm happy to see you all. So I'm just going to greet you. Please just give me a comment whether you can hear me or not. It's very important because audio is very difficult to do on one single computer, which I'm trying to do. So before we get to the subject, I'm just going to look at your comments on YouTube and be sure and wait until someone says, yes, Christian, we can hear you. So, and the same for Facebook, please. Sound is fine, good, I got it. Okay, first of all, hi Melissa and Elzinga, Dion Yushenko, Audrey Diadlun, and Mary and Sandy Golden and so on. I can hear Ivani is there. Yes, you can hear me. Osprey Mama, hi, good to have you there. Cindy, Sandy, Jesse, Mark Horner, my friend, is there. Diane Lambertson, Tiger Lily 999, Corey, Moonlight, Susie, yes, Judy, everybody. I can see tree climbing, Joanne Hunstiger. Sorry if I can't always see your names so well. I'm working with one stream, one screen. I'm doing this live next to a router in very simple conditions here. And I'm streaming parallel in YouTube and in Facebook. And I'm absolutely delighted to have all of you. Thank you, Lucy Thomas. That is great. Hi, Dee, Sherry Sparks, Crystal Van Brammer, Tonya Williamson. Facebook is always a little bit more difficult to read. I'm also going to rely on Jenny. Thanks, Jenny, for being here today. Hi, Terry Green. Hi, Amy Ganda, and so on and so on. All my friends, I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. So there is a reason. There is a major reason why I'm running this live stream. So first of all, Merry Christmas, okay? It's been difficult, right? It's been extremely difficult. So my time at the moment, it's just after 6 p.m. in the evening, and I remember exactly what happened almost 24 hours ago. Almost 24 hours ago, I was, like many others, watching the Northeast Florida nest with great anticipation. And I remember coming into the chat there, on one of the chats, not the main chat that Northeast Florida Nest has, but I remember coming in and seeing, oh my goodness, there's a shell, and the sun was slowly going down. And I thought, well, that should work from, I'm a physicist, so I thought that should work because the nest will maintain its heat even 1 to 2 hours. Because Romeo wasn't in the nest, right? So Romeo, and for those of you who don't know history, I'll just summarize it very quickly. On the 17th of December, Juliet suddenly disappeared. Juliet, the reliable mama who had been with the nest all the time. And just before that, she got injured. So it probably is a sequence of events that led to all the misfortunes that we are seeing right now. It started with an injury, Juliet being weakened, then completely disappearing, them looking for it, and so on. And then new females coming into the nest. And I just have a message from Gretchen. Thank you very much, Gretchen, for giving me the biggest, most important updates here on the Northeast Florida nest. It just came in a few minutes ago, so I don't want to spread any misinformation. But she says, we don't really know. There was been so many females and it was so aggressive. So Romeo was mainly incubating. There was one female, which they called A2, that was partly incubating. But coming now back to the story, it was just after 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I was wondering, gosh, if Romeo doesn't come back, this is not going to look good. What we did notice, and you may already know that before we start, and before I'm going to start all the discussion with you shortly, is it became very clear that this little one is weak, okay? It's weak. Because, and I have not been watching it as many times as you have, many hatches, but from the material I've seen from David Hancock ever since 2006, and a lot of data, also watching previous hatches, And what's going parallel on in Southwest, congratulations to Southwest Florida, by the way, it looked like this is going to be a very difficult hatch for obvious reasons, right? And it was struggling to leave the shell. And then it suddenly happened, all of a blue, there came an eagle. And at first I thought, wow, Romeo's back, fantastic. And then it seemed to have snatched it, and it snatched the little one, which we called E20, and flew off with it. And it was completely clear that that was the end, right? So this is what we would call cannibalism that we saw. And I don't want to go into any further details or speculation. I just want to refer you to the Northeast Florida nest itself, the NEFL. Just Google it. If anybody can put a link in, I'd be very happy. You know, Jenny, if you could put a link in, that would be wonderful. I'm just going to play. Yeah, that's the live camera at the moment. Hang on, I'm just going to see if we find another view. So that's their, here is their, that is, by the way, the webcam that's just being moved forwards and backwards. That is the site of the Northeast Florida from the American Eagle Foundation. Thank you. And I think, you know, they did a marvelous job. So read the chat here and the nest update. They have a long explanation here of what's been going on. And that is my source of information. So I just wanted to read to you what, before we go to other details, and I'm sorry if I can't see all your comments at the same time, so just bear with me, and then we'll get straight to the point. So JD from the American Eagle Foundation, a moderator, wrote on the 26th of December, just a few hours ago, the AEF has some very sad news. Just a few minutes after 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Christmas Day, just as little E20 was emerging from its shell, but with Romeo off the nest, yes, off the nest, the female visitor swooped down and killed the baby eagle. She then flew off with it. This is not the outcome we had hoped and prayed for, but one that we had feared. Our hearts go out to each and every viewer affected, and I include myself. I think this summarizes exactly what you need to know at this stage, right? Don't go into any other speculations, but this is very credible information. And it is something that David Hancock already a day before warned of, that this can be one of the outcomes. And unfortunately, that is exactly what happened, right? That's exactly what happened. If you want any further information, please refer to the American Eagle Foundation. I don't want to speculate. I'm here to facilitate your emotions that are definitely going to come up, and B, also explore a topic that is very close to my heart, is how do we deal with the ethics of wildlife? How do we deal with watching what's going on with cannibalism, what we call siblicide, kleptoparasitism, and so on? We'll get to all those terms. How do we deal with this when we watch? Should we interfere or not? And that's where I would like to bring in a lot of the live discussions with you. That is that is really the objective. I do congratulate the American Eagle Foundations. They handled this incredibly well, putting a lot of thought into it. You're coming here into unknown territory where terrible things happen that affect all of us, and I was one of them. I want to, maybe not the one that was so close as many of you were, but I certainly understand the emotions, absolutely, because I feel upset myself. However, at the same time, we have to deal with it, and I thought the American Eagle Foundation dealt extremely well with this because they put a disclaimer on their website. What a brilliant approach. I have not seen this before. Maybe there are other, I don't know where they got the idea from, but that was the most clever solution because they didn't censor you. They said, go at your own risk, and whatever you do, you're on your own now, okay? And that is exactly what happened yesterday. And there were many emotions involved, okay? So really congratulations to the way they handled this, absolutely superb. I wouldn't have known even how to do this any better. This is part of life now that we have. We have technology that is absolutely outstanding, outstanding. They have HD quality. You can see every minute detail from all the moderators that come from different angles. You know, since 2006, where it was just the beginning of the internet, having the bandwidth to stream at very poor resolution, to where we are now in 2018, coming towards 2019, where you have the Southwest Florida nest and 5,000 people watching at any time, and now 4,000 people, or whatever number it may be, watching at the Northeast Florida nest. You have this crisp technology, and at the same time, you get a naked, completely uncensored a view of nature. And that is exactly the topic that we're going to discuss now. What are we seeing, and how do we actually digest this, and should we intervene or not? Okay, so that is my introduction. Now I'm just going to jump back to greeting some more of you. I'm first going to jump to Facebook quickly, so I'm jumping from page to page here. I got lots of water, by the way. Pia Häkkinen, that sounds very Finnish. Yes, you are from Finland. Welcome from Finland. Let's see, your local time in Finland. Let me just calculate it in my head. Yeah, you should be right into the late evening right now. 10 p.m. for you now, absolutely. So you're 4 hours ahead of Brazil. Betty Teller Peters Fagan, I remember, grateful that the children in classrooms weren't watching. Well, but they will watch one day, and it's going to happen. Gail Janice Moore already says we have to accept that nature is not always perfect. Well, that's an interesting question. What do we mean by perfect? It's an interesting choice of words you have here, right? That is the scale. So you are, in a way, putting already some judgment on it and saying it's not perfect. So the question is, and this is great. What do we mean by perfect? Is it our own emotions, the way we want things to happen? Is that what we will call perfection? And what about your neighbor or somebody else who has a different feeling of what perfection is? Maybe somebody else thinks, well, we just need to let nature be as it is. That is my perfect way, and your perfect way is they'll have children, they'll live happily ever after. There'll be something human beings can never, ever accomplish in their lives. Is that what we call perfection, right? Okay, so let's jump. Patty Pellegrin says, how can I donate? Thank you very much. You can donate. There is a small button at the bottom, and if you want to donate, I'm very happy. This is all completely voluntary, and it goes to maintaining the channel. Okay, so thank you very much. There's also a PayPal channel. Cherie, nice to see you. For the last 2 days, I was not able to bring up the video. I could only read the mods' comments. That was upsetting. I bet it was. Proud Cat Mama of 2. Yes, talking to them. Susan North, hi. I knew this was going to happen. Well, Susan, you probably had a very good intuition, because David Hancock told me exactly the same, right? It was after all the sequence of events that we have seen, this seemed to be the most likely outcome, unfortunately. And Gretchen, by the way, from the Northeast Florida Foundation, the single person who made all this happen 10, 11 years ago, had already written to me, conveyed similar feelings to me a few days ago, right? Maria Wilder and tree climbing. Very nice to have you, Maria. How many nests do we not see where this happens? Absolutely. Maria, you're hitting the nail on the head. This is one important thing. We are very emotionally attached at the moment to one particular nest. But what about the nest next doors? And that is 99% of the nests that we do not see, that the rehab centers are getting. The rehab centers, so many of them that we've interviewed, get eagles every day through lead poisoning, through all kinds of other poisoning, through injuries on the road, and so on and so on. You never, ever get to see them. And those are the eagles that they take care of. Thanks to all the thousands of rehab centers that we have. Thank goodness to them. Because if it weren't for them, we wouldn't know. We would not know, right? So that's a good point. Thank you very much, Osprey Mama. Very kind of you. So, these are all important points. So what I would like to do now, hi, Dion Yushchenko. Man is not bad. It is man who created the technology that can save the lives of the wildlife. Man is good. Bad things happen. That's a beautiful way of looking at things. I like your optimistic view. Thank you very much for that view. Michelle Zulik says, at the Southwest Florida nest, M15 fought with Ozzy, yes, leading to Ozzy's demise. M50 and Harriet bonded after Ozzy's death, and now we are raising beautiful and wonderful little bubbleheads. What a nice way of saying that, Michelle. Thank you so much for that comment. Tree climbing, thank you very much on YouTube. Tim Harrell has great Florida wildlife cameras. Yes, you know that I actually... oh, you lost me. Hang on. You lost my feed. Hang on. Wait a sec. Did you lose my live feed? No, you shouldn't have lost me. 1 second. Have you lost my live feed? Wait a minute. Am I not there anymore? I'm sorry. Can you just give me a quick feedback, because I don't know how to interpret Pellegrina's comment on I lost live feed and so on. Have you lost my live feed? I'm just going to wait a second before I carry on. I cannot see all the windows at the same time, so I hope not me. You're back. Okay, got it. Thank you very much. Got it. Thanks. I'm sorry it always takes 1 minute till I get your feedback, but it's important. I don't want to. So you still have us on. Thank you very much. Great. Okay, Mark Horner's talking to me. He obviously has something to say to me, so it looks all good. Thanks, Mark, and thanks everybody else. Mark, I can't listen to your comment at the moment, but I believe Mark's my wonderful friend, so I'm just looking, but it looks like everything is fine. You see my watch is working, everything. You're back live. Thanks, Mark. Thanks. Got it, Mark. Okay, yeah, so great. So I don't know what happened. There was a small interruption. Okay, so here we go. So let's before we start the discussion, and thank you for all of you being here. And really, my Christmas heart goes out to all of you. Thank you, Terry Green. That is very nice. Thank you for this intelligent discussion. I will try and facilitate it in the best possible way. But I prepared this very carefully, and I wanted to, I wanted to give you some of the background here. Okay, so let's go back. What is the biggest surprise? And this is going to facilitate our discussion here. What is the biggest single surprise that we had with wildlife cameras? I thought about this, and I listened so much to David Hancock. David Hancock was one of the many pioneers who very early put one of the first eagle cams. He wasn't the only one. In the States, there were a few, and I don't know their names, who were earlier. But as you probably know, the biggest facilitator at the moment of wildlife cameras is Explore.org, and they do an absolutely fantastic job. You have camera feeds, and it almost looks like Noah's Ark to me. It's like Noah's Ark, where you have all the animals, and you can almost see everything you want. You can see eagles, owls, walruses, sharks, polar bears, beluga whales, grizzly bears, hummingbirds, even puppies and kittens, and so on and so on and so on. Puffins, oh my goodness, there's so much. You can see whatever you want from every possible angle. That's the biggest Noah's Ark of technology that we have nowadays. I mean, who would have known that we would have this one day? So we have, and what is so remarkable about the internet technology that nobody predicted, not even David Hancock predicted, is that it would explode like that. I mean, you have the beautiful David Attenborough documentaries, which I'm sure you love. David Attenborough is probably the most knowledgeable single person who does the best single wildlife documentaries in the world because of his decades of experience being all over the world, including Africa, the gorillas, and so on and so on. Marvelous work from David Attenborough. And there you have the live streams, and they're doing so exceptionally well. And all we're doing is watching and watching and watching. And some people do it day and night, and they comment and watch. That is something that nobody predicted. Nobody predicted it. Most people just had good intentions to show what we can show a part of wildlife, that people would have so much patience just to watch wildlife nobody's predicted. And that is the single biggest surprise that we've seen with the wild stream cameras. At the same time, this bears an incredible responsibility now. But whose responsibility is it ultimately? Whose responsibility is it to say, this is what you can view, and this is what you can't view? And this is nature is good and nature is bad, and this and so on. And you can see how we are putting things into boxes already and framing what people are allowed to see and what not. This is what children should see, this is not what they should see. This is good for me, this is bad for me. This is the outcome, I wish this is not the outcome, and so on and so on. So we are putting a lot of our anthropogenic feelings, projections into the animals, right? And that makes it really difficult. So again, the technology has evolved very quick with optical fibers and all the technology we have, that we can tune in almost to any angle, be it from Africa to Alaska and so on. You can see wildlife, and it's marvelous wildlife that you can see. So let's jump and look at this a bit further. So the main message here really is the idea that wildlife treats one another better than human beings is largely a wishful myth, wishful myth. So we're seeing that from our perspective, the way wildlife is treating each other is often exceptionally cruel from the way, we've seen this. So it is a myth. We come there with our expectations and we say, hey, we're going to see the eagles grow forever, and whatever I see on TV, all the politics that are so disturbing, I'm going to have my freedom and my wonderful life. And then we find that by observing the wildlife cameras, we see similar cruelty. And I still believe that human beings are a lot more cruel than animals. That's my personal belief. But we see a lot of these things coming out. And one thing we see is violence among animals. We see parental neglect. We see that parents neglected. Look at Romeo. He had to fly off. He had to make a decision. Whatever decision he made, it was instinct or whatever, he had to make a decision to get food and leave the little one in the most crucial moment. And he did it. You could call that parental neglect. I wouldn't, I'm just putting in these words. These are words or phrases that we're used to. And even cannibalism is something we see. Cannibalism is very common among animals. Surprise, surprise. It's not only the human cannibalism, but animal cannibalism is very common in years where there's less food. And that's what David Hancock said so many times. Only about 20% of the juveniles actually make it to an older age. They will allow their weakest offspring to starve to death. And we've seen that before with eagles. They're preferentially feeding healthier youngs that are more likely to survive. And that is the way evolution and so on is working. That is their survival path. And it's very tough to watch. There comes our hearts and say we should help the weak and the poor and whatever. That is the way we have been brought up, and most of you with big hearts, and we cannot deal with the way, what we're seeing with the eagles. And the same is with siblingicide, right? Siblings often kill each other to reduce competition. It's very common. It's very common amongst many animals. We've seen this also with eagles, with ospreys, and so on. And then the other thing that I just wanted to say before I'm going to go back and open the discussion, but I'm just giving you things to think about, is what we call kleptoparasitism. Kleptoparasitism means that food is being obtained by stealing meals from other animals, right? Very typical, and we've seen that in the eagle nest. You see these females coming in, and all they have to do, and knowing nothing better, is just take the food from Romeo. Well, isn't that upsetting? And that is brutal to watch. And that's what we've been seeing, at least from the 17th of December, where Juliet got missing. So we now stand here, and it's almost divided. The cameras have become an excellent source for citizen science, right? It's citizen science. We can do incredible viewing, and the observing that you are doing, all of you, is often a lot better than what the biologists can do, because the biologists are so occupied with either saving wildlife, understanding it, that you as a citizen can probably understand a lot of the behaviors that we've seen in the last 10 years better than many biologists can nowadays, okay? So that's interesting. So then the question arises, what should we show? When should we intervene? And how do we really make decisions? What do we base any decisions that we make on? What is the rationale behind it? Is it our own moral ethics, or is it live and let die, or live and let be, or whatever you want to say? Okay. So I've thrown lots of questions into this now, and I'm just picking up some question here from Jenny. She says, Mary Sebzanovin. Sorry if I mispronounced you, but your opinion. What do you think Romeo will do at this point? Will he leave the area and stay to keep and try and keep the nest? My own observation, we have had that in the Southwest Florida nest, haven't we? Help me, was it 2 years ago? I'm sure some of you can jump in now, but we have seen they remain on the eggs until they finally collapse, right? So finally the egg disintegrates, but that is their instinct. So most likely he will stay there. And that's just the way he is. He goes on, although we are at day 42, if I have it correct now, which it's probably completely unviable, right? So let me jump. Okay, it's quite warm here. Let me jump back now and see what your comments is. So thank you, GoPro. I also see my friend GoPro Creations is here. Thank you very much for being here. That's wonderful, and thank you so much for your donations. He says, great work, Christian. Thanks for what you do. Sometimes reporting the facts are very difficult and hard to understand. Absolutely. Absolutely it is. It is. And it makes it really difficult. Okay, so let's see what your thoughts are on what I just said. I put a lot of information in there for you to think. So let me just put out some questions here. Let's first of all get some of your feelings. What is your feeling? What is the main value actually of the camera? So let me start with Grace Roberts. Cams are educational. Good or bad is perception. We are emotional beings. Watching is our choice. And I would really agree with you. That is completely correct. So what we're actually doing here is we are viewing. Now, I do have a provocative question there for you. I have a very provocative question. You have many other people, and I just see Lady Hawk also here, often putting videos here with a lot of care, and some of them think they're very controversial, right? They're very controversial, and I've seen some comments. I get some of these comments, but I've also seen Lady Hawk, some of the getting some comments of people who are really upset with her. And I don't think, by the way, you should be upset with her. You should be very grateful that she puts this out. But some of the material is not the material you want to see. So my question there is, when do we really intervene? What is the time in a nest where we intervene? I mean, when an animal cannot make it outside, it's very clear. It's very simple. Not really simple at all. But it gets the duty of every citizen would be to see that that animal or raptor is brought to a wildlife center. That is the natural thing that we do, is to contact one. But what happens if it's up at the nest? And let me give you different scenarios here, okay? Different scenarios. In one case, we have exactly what happened yesterday. It turns out to be that the hatch is so difficult from an energy point of view that the little one cannot make it. So it's highly improbable, even if Romy had come back, he would have survived. Should we intervene, yes or no, with nature? Or let's go to the next step. What about lead poisoning, right? Let's say you see that there's an eagle up there and it's slowly starting to feel very bad, or very fast feeling very bad, because you know there's just a few milligrams of lead is enough to poison it. Or what about having blueberry fields like we have in British Columbia, and they start getting some of the poison from the blueberry fields, start feeling bad, and so on and so on. Or the little ones get hooked up in a fishing line. When do we intervene? When do we not? When are we getting away from the viewer position into a proactive position and saying, now we have to intervene? So I'm going to open the floor, and I've put lots of questions out there to think about it. Okay, let me start with Tom Sawyer. Hello, Dr. Sasse. Lady Hawk and my friend Pamela and everyone. Difficult situation at Northeast Florida. Still praying for Romeo. I agree, Tom. And by the way, thanks for putting all your comments in. Thank you very much. And Mark Horner says, Mark, should we save every duckling from a hungry great blue heron? Well, you're hitting the nail on the head. And I think you're thinking very clear here, because this is exactly, I mean, what about all the cats out there? There are, if you know, probably the biggest killer for birds has not been DDT. It's been the biggest extinction in the United States is probably of the birds, where so many species have been lost, is through cats. It's quite shocking. Should you let your cats out? Should you not? And so on. So here are lots of questions that are coming up. Okay, I'm going to just jump to Ines Rowbottom on Facebook. Hard not to get attached and emotionally invested. I have not watched this nest, but saw 2 eagles at Decorah. Yes, Decorah nest. We've had that last year, Perch after a week old. It was heartbroken. Watching Mr. North, grief was hard. Yes. We were told eagles had no emotions, but watching him looking down at a dead eagle was heart-wrenching. Well, and we actually touched upon that last time, because we saw the reaction of Ozzy, and we heard these incredibly, this, I don't even know what to call this, but it was a very disturbing call that Ozzy had, when, not Ozzy had, sorry, what am I saying? Harriet had, I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up. What Harriet has, Harriet had when he lost Ozzy. That's what I meant to say, I'm sorry. It's a little bit hot here. Yes, Gianni is just remarking anthropomorphism is giving animals human characteristics. It's something we talked about. Lachelle Langto Kuster, I hope I pronounced that correctly, it sounds very South African. Humans put these emotions on eagles. Is this wrong? It's not wrong, it's the way we are. We can't help it. You cannot change your own character, but you can become aware of the way you behave. That's the difference, right? And we can correct our behavior. It doesn't mean you should detach yourself, because we can't. But you can certainly rationalize about the way you are, right? That I think is important. I'm going to jump back now to YouTube. Osprey Mama, we will be taking other food sources away to other animals. This is nature's way of doing check and balances. I believe too, baby eaglet was too weak to survive, and this helps it not suffering. Yes, and I actually completely agree. This was my observations too. Gold procreations, to intervene, may appear to be a good thing initially, but I think the bottom line is just postponing the inevitable disaster. I would agree that a small percentage of actions may succeed. Interesting thought. Where are you, says Patty. If you're talking to me, Patty, I'm in Brazil, and in summer. I haven't got the fan on, because if I had the fan on, I would be, my voice would be gone by now. So it's quite hot. So I'm drinking quite a lot of water to keep up. So the local time is 6:30 p.m. Maywood Hamlin on Facebook. I see this grieving. I see this grieving any different than grieving for my fur baby when it passes, right? Okay, okay. So let me just see. Okay, Gianni has put in lots of comments here. So I'm so grateful, Gianni. It's great that you're putting all this. So let me see. Susan North, did Romeo leave the nest permanently? No, he did not. He came back. He usually, and that's my understanding, and please, all you Northeast Florida experts, jump in with this. My understanding is typically he leaves for 1 to 2 hours, but the timing, of course, at that time was quite unfortunate. It was just when the sun was setting, and it was a difficult time. By the way, he was constantly stalked by one of the females who come in and stalk him for food. That is the question. David Edward Gates, is there any chance of another clutch of eggs there this season? No is the answer. It's not. This happens once a year at very regular intervals. Now we have an interesting situation because there are new females arriving at the nest, and they're going to very much disrupt the way things have been going. So we do not know what's going to happen next year. They have been very predictable so far. So the answer is no. It's not like hummingbirds or others, where they seem to, I knew you said they seem to litter, of course not. They seem to lay eggs quite often. Terry Green, hi. Question, Dr. Sasse. Because the eagle population has recovered nicely, why would intervention not be appropriate? Thank you. Well, this is a very difficult question. I have to ask a question. You have to be more specific. What type of intervention are you talking about, right? Are you talking about intervention if a fishing line gets to their foot, or are you talking about intervention of saving the little one if it had at all been possible? Is that the type of intervention you mean? So I think it's a difficult question. Kathy, hi. I have followed this nest for 3 years, and so sad what happened. But it's sad, but that's nature. Do you think Juliet is still around somewhere? Kathy, honestly, no. The probability is very low from what we know from the White Rock nests, what I've seen myself, this type of tragedy. It's almost impossible with the very green, thick forest that you have around the Northeast Florida nest, and I've seen it. It's almost impossible. The problem was that Juliet was injured before the 17th of December, and the injury probably made her too weak to defend. And from then on, a chain of events happened, which then led to the unfortunate death of NE20. Okay, so the probability is extremely low. It would only be good if a wildlife rehab center would find them, but that is also highly unlikely. Most eagles are probably not found that die in the wild. It's only those that either are brought in for horrible lead poisoning, and very few make it anyway from there, or they have been hit by a car due to, that's what David Hancock always preaches, if there's roadkill, please remove it away from the road. so that the animals don't get injured. Then, next question, PMTZLVN. That's quite a difficult one. Will the intruder crack the egg herself and take the eaglet? So when you say and take the eaglet, that can't happen in Northeast Florida anymore because the egg is already unviable. You know, if tomorrow, if tomorrow the egg, if there's a hatch tomorrow, I will eat my words, but it's highly unlikely. Okay, we do know that egg number 2 was the one that that NE20 came from, and there's no NE19 if I counted correctly. Anyway, there's no eaglet before that because the other egg is already way past 42. So probably it has gone below the critical temperature and is probably not viable anymore. We've seen this before. Only 20 to 25% of all the little ones actually make it. It's very tough to survive in the wild. Number 7, Melissa Ann Elzinga. But then how was the Decorah North able to lay another clutch? I cannot answer that. And I would prefer someone else jumping in. And this is not, just to answer one part of the question, if I answer something, it is very specific for a nest. It is not a generic formula I'm talking about. We're talking about very specific incidences in very specific locations, under very specific climatic conditions, and so on, and so on, and so on. And we already note, and David Hancock always reminds of that, the eagle biologist always reminds, you cannot just compare one location to the next. Decorah has very hard winters. It's completely different. And the situation may have been completely different. So Melissa, and that's all I can say for that. And then maybe somebody else can jump in and give some further explanation about Decorah North. But again, every situation in every nest depends very much on who mama and papa are, what the local circumstances are, and so on and so on. How many owls are there? Oh my goodness, there are so many parameters here, okay? So many. Okay, thank you, tree climbing. That's very kind. Don't poison rodents. It travels up the food chain. Oh, that, you know, tree climbing, we have had several interesting discussions, and you can look them up on the channel on poisoning, how dangerous it actually is, because it is so instinctive to whatever we do to react very local. So if we put rat poison in, then we are happy because our house is clean, but inevitably we affect everything around. And there are solutions against rodent poisoning, but it doesn't have to be the way you go to Home Depot or whatever it is to get the worst poison, to get it out of your way. I think that's a great point here, tree climbing. Thank you for that. Okay, let me jump back again to to Facebook. Gail Reisinger Wiglowski. I want to thank the American Eagle Foundations for making our view into the natural world a reality. Nature is not always pretty, but it is very real. A learning experience for all of us who view. Absolutely, I agree. So this is new territory, Gail, that we are seeing here that we've not seen before, and it had to happen at the Northeast Florida nest. It just happened to happen there, but it has happened at other nests too. We've seen it, especially on the Channel Islands. There have been some, so you know, they have a lot of cameras there too, and they're covered by Dr. Peter Sharp, who was interviewed. Who I interviewed a little more than a year ago, who's very knowledgeable. But there's a lot of data and there are a lot of cameras. I was trying to get an estimate, by the way, how many live eagle cams there are. And my estimate is, because there are new ones coming online, is probably in North America around, and maybe Lady Hawk or someone knows a number, I would estimate between 50 and 100. Not at the moment because it's winter in most of the areas. But I think come February or so, we would see between 50 and 100 of bald eagles alone. I'm not talking about eagles in Europe and elsewhere, just here. So we have more and more cameras coming online all the time. It's quite phenomenal, right? Okay, let's see what else we have. Another from Facebook. Grace Roberts says, Iowa mating, nesting, nothing like southern bald eagles. And that, I think what you're doing there is referring to a statement that I made earlier, that all the experiences from the nest, all the nest data are very individual, even from location to location. Locally, they're very different. Okay, so let's jump back to let's jump back now to YouTube. Kathy Braden. Here we go. Okay, whoops, it's going up very quickly. Liberty disappeared for several weeks after an altercation at the, oh, now we come to Pittsburgh, Hanover nest last year. Yes, I recall that. After her mate Freedom abandoned the eggs to go eat, Liberty returned weeks later. So you never know. Yeah, so that was that. So here you go. So Kathy, that is a great point. Thank you very much for bringing this up. So it came as a complete surprise, and I now remember that. I remember that Liberty completely disappeared, and then came back again, returned weeks later. So it can happen. It can happen. It's unlikely, but Kathy, that is a great point. Thank you so much. Nana Favol says, I was more concerned about the cut under her beak. Yes, right. And you're talking about what happened before the 17th of December, I presume, right? Okay. Nancy and Jim Sweat or Sweat, I have probably. Although the egg is non-viable, it is possible the egg can be broken and a dead chick will be inside, as this is what happened at Hanover, again referring to the Hanover nest last year when the intruder ate it. Well, that's an interesting point. I didn't know that. Nancy and Jim, that is a great, that's interesting. Let me just read out this again. Although the egg is non-viable, it is possible the egg can be broken and a dead chick will be inside, as it is what happened at Hanover. So that is still possible, and the intruder ate it. So yes, that happens with chickens too, doesn't it? So it's something that can still happen, and we might see that, right? Bev 19, let me just see where, Bev, 1 second. I just want to find your comment. Bev 1946, rodents need to be excluded from where you don't want them. Killing them only leaves a void where another one will quickly fill. Yes, but beware of the balance that we have with poisoning, right? We know that from DDT, and we have to become more responsible the way we get rid of rodents. I mean, we know that from the Great Pest and so on, that rodents can be very dangerous. So I agree with that, but we have to be very mindful in the way we do it. That is the main thing. Osprey Mama says, I know of 45 just Osprey live cams. Christian, okay, thank you very much. That's 45 Osprey cameras alone. So I think my estimate of 50 to 100 Eagle cams will be correct. And we will be counting them come January and February, when more and more will be online, when we will see more happening with the Berry Nest, with Decorah, with the Channel Islands, and all the way up to British Columbia. And I don't think they have any eagle cams in Alaska. I might be wrong. Debbie Garcia, could it be this female had done this as a means of her taking possessions of this nest as her own? You know, I don't want to answer that. I would like David Hancock, and unfortunately he's not there, to answer that question. He would know more about the behavior than I do. It is one thing I do know, Debbie, is eagles are big opportunists, right? They're scavengers. So they're probably driven by people, oh, here's somebody bringing in food, help yourself. And whether it's also a mixture of possession, I don't know. It may very well be. But I think the first instinct would be saying, here's free food, okay? And not taking any responsibility for the nest as such. I think probably the instinct for the nest may come later. And we've seen that on one of the females, A2, right? Okay, let me go on. You've got so many thank you again, tree climbing. Very, very kind of you. Okay, here comes Diane Lambertson. Glue traps are bad for wildlife, or anyone, okay, would put them outside is incredibly stupid. Okay, you made your point, Diana. Got it. So there we are. Good old visitors will well tended for rodents, says Chaz. Okay, let me jump back now to Facebook again, and then I will see what Jenny has in the meantime. Juno Alaska has an Eagle camp. Thank you, Lachelle Langto Kuster, for correcting me there. So Juno, I have been to Juno. It's a lovely place. It's a wonderful place. They have this beautiful glacier, and they have these eagles, and you make the most beautiful pictures on ice there. So yes, it does. Thank you very much. Gail Weglovsky says, Christian, thank you for your support and love. Grammy American Eagle Foundation, very nice to see you again. Thank you very much for that very kind note. By the way, I just wanted to say, kindly give the channel a thumbs up. It really helps, and share it on YouTube and Facebook, and subscribe to Zassefoto. I will do my best to bring more, and do be respectful for each other. You know, whatever your opinion may be, just be respectful of each other. That is the main thing. That is the only way we can grow our knowledge and become wiser, is be respectful. Okay, so let me just see. Here's Jenny has some more questions. Thank you, Jenny, for posting them. Question number 8, Debbie Garcia. Could it be this female had done this as a means of taking position? Oh, yes, we answered that one. Yes, I did. Sorry, I answered that. Proud cat mama of 2. What determines if and when wildlife officials... Yes, so this is a very critical question. What determines if and when wildlife officials will intervene? I would love someone from Northeast Florida or Southwest Florida to answer that, because again, I believe that this is first of all probably not a federal decision in the states, if I'm wrong. I would think that is a state decision, isn't it? Or would that be a state decision? So correct me if I'm wrong, but that would probably be the way. I don't know the answer to that, but it's a great question. If anybody has an answer here for Proud Cat Mama of 2, saying, again, what determines if and when wildlife officials will intervene? And it probably is an individual decision too. There's no answer book for this, because we are all in some new territory, but I think it's a great question. And then Tiger Lily 999. Is the female that killed E20 the same one that was incubating the eggs? My understanding, and I may be wrong, from what I've seen from Gretchen, by the way, from Northeast Florida, is it's a different one. I don't think it was the same. And there have been so many that even the mods are confused, because there has been such activity there. You probably have to have a very careful count of what's going on. So I think the answer is we don't know. But do check with the American Eagle Foundation with the mods. There may be somebody who can give you the correct answer. My guess is no, but let them answer it, okay? Great questions. Okay, let's see what else we have. I'm jumping back now to Facebook. Joanne Carney says she's young and has been fighting for survival for 5 years. She's still obviously fighting for food. Hormones haven't got information. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, but that's probably my own shortcoming, that I don't always know if you're talking to someone else. Sonia is saying here, wildlife people will only intervene if the issue was human caused. Great answer. Like fish line in the nest. That happened in Southwest Florida, yes. And I think with E8. Sonia, that's a great answer. Thank you so much for that. So Sonia has an answer here. Does anybody agree with the answer? So the thing is, if there is, and we've seen that, I think, with one of the California nests, if I remember correctly, if Lady Hawk is still around, or someone, one of them caught in a fishing line, they will intervene. Otherwise, they will not intervene. So it is, if it is of human cause, they will intervene. Okay, let me jump. Kathy Adams, nice to see you. Dahlia has a distinctive beat, so intruder, not her. Yes, Dahlia is an interesting case. It's a female that has a very distinct beak. I do remember the story of Dahlia, and how, because you can actually differentiate between females and males by measuring the size of the beak as well as the talons, if you don't have the DNA opportunity to take a DNA sample. So that's just referring to Delia. I remember showing photos of Delia, very intriguing beak. So they did recognize that Delia came back to the nest a few years later. Isn't that correct? I think that was where the story from. Osprey Mama says, Christian, it's a law. So what you, if I understand you correctly, Osprey Mama, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're saying it's a law, and you're probably referring to the case if the if the inhibition was caused by human, it's a law to intervene. That's probably what I understand from the remark. I hope I didn't get that out of context. So correct me if I'm wrong. Let's jump back to Facebook. Ines Roboton says, the one that took the baby had some dark tail feathers. Okay, good observation. Grace Roberts says, appeared to be A3, and I'm glad you used the word appear, because you know what, that's the question, how much do we really know? It's a good answer, it's a careful answer, I like that. Okay, good. I'm just running through lots of comments, and let me see if there's nothing new from Jenny, so I'm actually catching up with all of you. Let me scroll up a little bit from YouTube. I cannot scroll up on Facebook, unfortunately. Here's Kathy Adams says, California wineries use owl boxes to kill rodents. There you go. They kill dozens of rodents each night very effectively. Isn't that brilliant? So what Kathy is saying, there are other ways of doing things. You just have to know how to do it, and you have to educate yourself on doing that. That goes absolutely the same, by the way, in British Columbia, where they just put poison on the blueberry fields, which is absolutely disgusting. Because either they don't know better, or they don't care, or whatever reason it is. And unfortunately, we've seen that. I know that from David Hancock, we have seen that the eagles have been poisoned that way. Right. I'm just seeing. There's a lot of discussion among yourselves, which is great. Diane Lambertson, I'm just scrolling back now. Female eagles can lay a second clutch. If the first clutch is lost in the source, wait a second, is nest the mother laid? Oh, I see. There must be something wrong here in the translation. Mother laid several clutches, up to 9 eggs each. Unfortunately, so Diane Lambertson is actually correcting that, what I've said, which is great. So they can lay another clutch if the first clutch is lost in the source of the nest. I don't think, however, that is with the Northeast Florida nest. So that has to come in a very short sequence of time, right? Bird Lover says, do you think they will ever find Juliet? Yeah, well, I think I just answered that, at least from my opinion, but you heard from the Hanover nest that there are exceptions. That is great. Angel Bookman, I cannot seem to get an expert reasonable answer. Okay, here we go. Anyone possibly know why? I thought they fight for the nest mate eggs with their life, as Juliet may have. IMO Romeo gave up fast. Did he know he would lose? Hurt the egg. Oh, but Angel, I think Romeo was a Superman. Okay, this is just my personal opinion. I think he was a Superman. I mean, first of all, you have to know the males are much smaller than the females, right? That's the one thing. So the females are a lot stronger. And there wasn't only one female, there were 2 or 3, plus the responsibility of laying eggs, plus the responsibility of getting food. I think this has been the most exceptional super papa I can possibly imagine, right? So maybe your expectations are too high of men, but I wouldn't be able to do what Romeo did. In Romeo's defense, I have to say that. Not being very, very anthropomorphic, right? But I think that deserves an answer like that. You're looking for the absolute Superman. Okay, so I think Romeo did a great job. Okay, let's jump back. Hey, Gretchen, been praying for you, friend. Oh, that says Pamela. Gretchen is there. That is wonderful, Gretchen. You are somewhere here, and I'm sure you are. Lady Hawk, I see all the comments. That is great. And Lady Hawk, please, everyone, feel free to answer questions. Lady Hawk is just saying, yes, that is correct, Christian. That the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will intervene when the cause is man-made. Thank you so much. So here we have a confirmation, not like the situation in Northeast Florida. That would be exactly, and by the way David Hancock would analyze the situation too. By the way, I can tell you, Lady Hawk, that David Hancock has been severely attacked and many times, and I've witnessed it, because he did not intervene in the many nests that he put the camera up. And my goodness, did he have a lot of verbal abuse to swallow. I feel sorry for these people, especially for David Hancock. I can tell you, before you complain to the lovers of wildlife who really support wildlife, think twice. Get your emotions aside, deal with them before you take it out on people like David Hancock or the Northeast Floridanist or Southwest, whatever they may be. These are really caring people. Rest assured, they may not always take the right decision, because the right decision is very difficult to know. If we knew everything, we would always make the right decision. But rest assured, they put a lot of thought into what they do. So that's just, that was just an important point I wanted to make. Okay, so let's see what else we have. I'm just going to see if, yes. Oh, yes. Jenny just said, that's an interesting one. Tiger Lady 999 again. Are the laws different for eagles than for other birds like osprey? My intuitive answer from what I've just seen from Lady Hawk, from Osprey Mama, and from others is, I would say the eagles are no different than the ospreys as far as laws are concerned, because if that is a wildlife law, why should it be any different for any type of genus or species, right? Or for that fact, any bird or animal. Lady Hawk, yes. Christian, when the female lays multiple clutches, it is because the eggs cracked and collapsed right away. There you go. That's the important. So it's a very short span. They cracked and collapsed right away, which still triggered the female egg laying ability. Hence the sauces with two clutches. Well, you've again explained it very well. Thank you so much, Lady Hawk. I can't stop thanking you for your incredible contribution to wildlife and the whole community that you have, and you're looking at all kinds of camera. The work that you do is second to none. I have such admiration. And if you haven't followed Lady Hawk, follow her on her channel. You will be amazed. Thank you for that wonderful comment. Okay, jumping back now. Mark Horner, my friend. Interesting to consider how much education and awareness this Northeast Florida nest event has spawned. Yes, widens the context of a loss at this nest. Well, you see, this is interesting. Mark is looking at this very rationally. He says, look at the educational value that we've gained. We will overcome the emotional loss and grief, but then what remains is the education. I think that is a great point. We will learn more about nature and also how to deal correctly with nature. Thank you, Mark. Great comment. Susie O. Anyone watch the black eagles in South Africa? You know, I might go to South Africa in 2019. I grew up partly in South Africa. Female laid second clutch 42 days after first clutch a few years ago. You know, that is an interesting thought. I have to look up where, Susie O, where that nest is. So that is interesting. So 42 days afterwards, the second clutch a few years ago. That is a great comment. Thank you again for your great insights here. Wow. Nice. Let me see what else. There's a lot of other discussions going among yourselves, which is wonderful. Alice Poe says, I agree, Christian. Lady Hawk, thank you for everything that you do. You're so amazing, with 2 big hearts and 1 million from me. Okay, that is great. Cherie M says, yes, Lady Hawk, you always go above and beyond, and I appreciate what you do to keep everyone updated with all your videos. Great. So everybody agrees what wonderful work Lady Hawk is doing. That is great. So let me jump back to the Facebook page, and I wish I could. Oh, they're also going on about Lady Hawk. That is great. So that is good. Such a wonderful group of people, says Baffle91. So you know what? I think we've had a wonderful discussion. What I would like to encourage you to do is just think about what I've said. Okay, here's one more from Joanne Middle. Christian, is the law different in Canada then? No, it's not. It's not. And I'm 99% sure that they have the similar, very similar laws. And I know that from the behavior that David Hancock has. Excuse me, I'm just going to have some water. We do have different laws, at least in British Columbia, about picking up feathers and so on. But as far as the treatment of wildlife is concerned, it would be very similar in Canada. Okay, so let me just jump back. So I just wanted to remind you finally of and summarize one of the things that what we've been discussing today, and some of the things we've discovered. So once again, wildlife cameras have improved drastically, and they are completely changing the way we are seeing the world. We look at the world differently, and we learn so much. And we have more and more wildlife cameras coming on everywhere for free. And it is amazing to see how attached people get, both from an educational point of view and an emotional point of view, to these cameras. Explore.org, and you've heard of them all, has this Noah's Ark of cameras, which is outstanding, and I'm sure you've seen that. It is just incredible, and it is so nice that we can look at nature that way and enjoy it without interfering with that. So it's a type of Noah's Ark that floats away without us interfering too much and unnecessarily. We do at the same time look at violence, parental neglect, cannibalism, siblicide, kleptoparasitism, sorry, here we go, obtaining food by stealing meals from other animals, and so on. Siblicide is killing each other to reduce competition, and cannibalism is clear, right? So we're seeing all these behaviors, and they are very disturbing. We have to cope with these emotionally. At the same time, it's important that we deal with these emotions correctly and we do not let it out on other people. I think it's very important, especially not to the providers who do all this voluntary, be it a rehab center or others. Trust them on the correct decisions. These are the people to be on your side and not against. Should we intervene? The summary there is the intervention comes as soon as it is man-made, and that is what we base our decisions on. The other things, we have to take more care of our environment. Lead poisoning is definitely one of the most severe, severe killers that we have for raptors. We've seen that time and again, right? So I do hope that this has given you some, relief or some discussion. And I think it adds value to the many chats that you have, because I do my best to read out whatever comments you have and to help digest them in the correct way. So here's one more from Stephanie Eldman, who says, "Thank you to everyone for helping understand and learn about these eagles. It makes my heart feel better just talking to all the enthusiasts." And I think that hits the nail on the head, Stephanie. That is a very nice way to end. So I wanted to wish you all a really Merry Christmas again and a Happy New Year. I'll be offline for a few days now because we're going to Rosanna's grandfather, who lives in the middle of nowhere, and I'll be back around New Year or so. But in the meantime, enjoy wildlife, the precious wildlife. Romeo will go on, and whatever female may come. The Southwest Florida nest is thriving. It is wonderful to see all that. And thank you for all the comments on Decorah, on Hanover Nest, and so on. That has really also increased the educational value quite a lot. And finally, do give us thumbs up. Please do that. It means a lot. It's a little effort that makes a big difference. Okay, so I'm going to now first switch off again, and hopefully I get the sequence right here, get on the right screen. So let me see, yes. So I will first say goodbye to all my Facebook friends. So goodbye, and thank you very much for joining, and all the best for 2019, and you'll see a lot more on this channel. Thank you very much. And then I am going to jump to YouTube and say bye to my YouTube friends, and thank you for taking the time during Christmas to tackle this very difficult subject. And I wish you also all the best and Happy New Year. Thank you so much.